Hello, Bl'Artagnan here with my poll plans video for Noel's BT cycle. I've been trying to figure out a way to share my feelings on upcoming characters without eating up as much of my time as the Should You Pull series I used to do did, so hopefully tackling them in bulk will fit the bill. Before we get into it, be sure to hit that like button, ring that notification bell, and subscribe for more content. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the characters and on whether you'll be pulling for them. I'd like to hear from you. You should also join me every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. on Twitch for the live stream, our weekly DFFOO stream alongside Raw Life and Some Girl, where we share our thoughts on the game, talk through the characters, the fights, the content, and play through the latest stuff. There's usually some good laughs, and I'd hope to see you live, even though I do post the VODs here on this channel. Before we begin, I want to give a quick disclaimer. I'll be giving each unit a really high-level overview, touching on their roles and their significant upgrades before sharing my thoughts and whether I'll be pulling. Since every character from here out gets C90, and oftentimes a rework that equates to just more brave hits and more brave dumps, I'm only going to be mentioning things that actually affect how the character plays. I won't be delving into the nitty-gritty of the kits, so for more details, I encourage you to check out Tombury Troop or Dissidia Compendium, both of which are linked in the description below. As a global exclusive player, these are only my impressions, and I'm not going to be bringing deep insight into the context of future fights and viability. Oh, and if a character is a favorite or looks like they'll work well with your favorites, you do you. This is just like my opinion, man. Alrighty, with that legalese out of the way, let's get on to the good stuff. We have 4 banner characters dropping tonight, the first of which is Noel from Final Fantasy XIII-2. Noel is a melee damage dealer with instant break and re-break utilities with the gimmick of hitting harder when he's attacking broken targets. His biggest damage is tied to his hard-hitting EX, which lacks refunds and will need support to hit its very high damage ceiling. His Burst Plus increases his recast speed, enabling him to aggressively smash enemies while it's active. Be sure not to use his Burst phase while the BT is active, because you're going to want to use that effect to juice his EX. Noel falls into this awkward spot for me, because folks with Machina will probably not need Noel to clear content, and he's soon going to be followed by Locke, who is arguably overall a better pick. Don't get me wrong, he's very strong, and if you pick him up, he'll be a good investment. He's just not one I feel compelled to invest my resources into, especially the blue and green ingots. His banner mate is Cid Highwind from Final Fantasy VII. Cid is a ranged wind element attacker with some minor healing and dispel utility. His big gimmick is that he has attacks with small brave hits but lots of brave dumps, giving him a very high damage ceiling if you can build to amplify that damage. His LD gives him a Garnet-style follow-up that triggers every 2 Cid attacks based on a stacking overhead on the turn of the ally after Cid's stacks have built up. It's a wordy way to explain it, don't overthink it. Basically, every couple of Cid turns, he'll do a big follow-up. Since Cid and Noel are damage dealers, they need heavy investment to be worth using. This is kinda Cid's weak point. You need to build around him for those brave dumps to translate into high HP damage. Unfortunately, I don't really plan on investing heavily enough in either of these units for them to really be worth using, so I'll probably just throw some tickets to try to make farming Ifrit easier with one of their LDs, but nothing more than that. The other banner releasing tonight brings us Onion Knight from Final Fantasy III. He gets a minor LD board rework that improves the LD attack and auras, along with the requisite C90 improving his EX, and his Burst Plus, which extends the effect by 2 turns and gives it some attack and HP damage up. That's it. That's really it. That's not good. That's bad. Jesus, don't pull for this kid. If you have him, don't green him. Moving on. His banner mate is Sarah from Final Fantasy XIII. She gets a rework that amps up her damage, amps up her debuffs, and amps up her auras. Basically, she does everything she already did, but better. Her debuffs are now framed, which is a blessing and a curse. She's a great aura bot, competitive with Lena. In fact, you could put the 2 of them together on one team with a DPS and probably clear most fights provided you check the mechanics. Her main weakness is that if she's your solo support, she brings no healing and minimal mitigation, so you just need to plan around that. If, like me, you have her already, awesome. Actually, if we're being honest, her biggest weakness, and the reason I'm skipping this banner, is because she's on a banner with Onion Knight. Needless to say, I won't be touching this, and neither should you. Before we move on to the next event, I want to touch on the units on campaign banners that could drop into our lap at any moment. Vanille from Final Fantasy XIII was expected weeks ago, so I'm going to cover her here. She's a support who provides battery, dispel, and potent debuffs that include a dispelling trap. Her LD gives her competitive party auras, while her C90 improves her damage and makes her trap actually do damage. She appears serviceable, but suffers from not really bringing anything unique or overpowered to the team, as far as her gimmicks go. I have her roles covered by units that I'm more attached to, so unless she appears alongside a really enticing surprise bannermate, I'll be skipping, with sincere apologies to noted vanilla enthusiast and co-host of the livestream, Some Girl. The other campaign banner we may see features Noctis from Final Fantasy XV. Noctis is a ranged damage dealer who can warp his or his allies' turns in front of the bosses without adding to the turn count, allowing for some crazy big brain plays and ludicrous low turn runs. He also launches and enjoys hunting, fishing, and road trips with his buddies. He gets a rework that improves his damage as well as his BT+, which adds offensive stats to the BT effect and extends it from 3 to 6 turns. The fundamentals of Noctis' kit make him quite powerful whenever a tuning pass brings his numbers up, so if you enjoy his methodical, planful playstyle, you can reap some big benefits. Unfortunately, I'm a smooth brain and will not be giving him the green. His bannermate is Prompto, also from Final Fantasy XV. He is a ranged Swiss Army knife attacker with a broad role coverage, so I'll try and summarize. He has lock, evasion, instant break, defense ignore, off-turn damage, regen healing, party auras, and a passion for photography. Prompto's C90 improves the special brave and HP attacks he gets after using his EX, turning them into hard-hitting free turn attacks. He slots into most any team, bringing a nice mix of tools that can fill gaps or provide redundancy. If I had to give Prompto a weakness, it's that he doesn't bring the power to any of his roles that a specialist would, so you'll need to make sure his teammates bring additional damage and auras to make up for it. Since I have all the gear on this banner, I won't be pulling, although I would have considered trying to ticket his LD if I didn't already have it. For the next actual event we'll be seeing, we'll be returning to Queen's Lost Chapter from Final Fantasy Type 0. Queen is a well-rounded melee support with strong offensive auras and some defensive utility, including HP damage mitigation, healing, and party-wide last stand. Her EX amps her offenses, making her unkillable and giving her 3 turns of a special brave and HP attack, the latter of which is upgraded with her C90. Her LD boards also gain a personal brave refund after attacking, which kind of helps with one of her 2 biggest weaknesses in my eyes, which is her poor battery. Her other big weakness is the atrocious damage on her base skills, although the revamped EX attacks kind of help mitigate this. She's really well-rounded and kind of slops into pretty much any team as a good aura support and healer. Her bannermate is Cater, a ranged ice attacker with lock, evade, and counter attacks, as well as a trap on her EX. Her LD turns her brave and HP attacks into charge attacks that get stronger each time you don't use them the previous turn. Damage dealers who protect the party are neat. Actually, wait, she's an ice attacker. I should have said they're cool. Well, shoot. Gun joke. Anyway, Cater is self-sufficient and useful. Her weakness, if you want to find one, is that she needs to weave her dodge counters in there to really make her a damage-efficient character compared to some of the other units we're going to be seeing, so she won't fit in as well on some of the more popular no-boss turn strategies you're going to be seeing and using. As for me, I already have Queen and Cater doesn't really call to me, so she's going to have to wait until next time. Last up is a new character, Lude from Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings. He is a ranged attacker who consumes his own HP to deal damage to the enemy while bringing battery, healing, and fat party auras. His most notable trick is his EX, which fills his allies' EX gauges similar to Ash, just in time for all those awesome C90 EX upgrades. Now, his obvious downside is that, while he has last stand, burning his own HP can put him at risk in some fights. You can work around that. The bigger question is whether the power he brings is necessary in an era when most units are going to be pretty honking powerful. Personally, I'll be pulling for him with tickets. I have a fondness for evergreen utility like instant EX recharge, so it may be fun to play around with that. Besides, I don't have Zell, and he shares the banner with him, so maybe that'll be a bonus. Well, that wraps it up for my plans for this cycle. Not a whole lot of super exciting stuff aside from C90 happening, I'll admit, but I hope this was helpful for you in figuring out who you want to gun for. Gun. That's another Cater joke. Anyway, I'll leave a comment down below with your plans, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Adios.
Ah, nuts.